Welcome to the second edition of my weekly news podcast, where I will be talking about important news and developments as impartially and unbiased as possible. This week's most significant political news has been the Three Amigos Summit. The Kyle Rittenhouse trial has concluded, and Austria has gone into full lockdown. Our first story is the Three Amigos Summit, where the three nations of Canada, the United States, and Mexico met to discuss further cooperation on the North American continent. And also, the summit has been held for the first time in 5 years. Each nation had different issues to voice to the other, but expectedly, the chief cause of concern was immigration. An even greater number of migrants are coming through Mexico to the US, hoping to settle there. The number of people attempting to illegally enter the US has increased as a result of migrants' overall view that US policy has loosened under the Biden administration. Though most people have a false view that most of the people that are trying to enter the US are actually Mexicans. The truth is nowadays, Mexico is more of a stopping point for migrants that are mainly coming from impoverished Central American countries and the Caribbean and of course South America. There were also some economic points discussed during the summit, such as President Biden's proposed tax cut on electric vehicles, although it only applies if they are made in the US. Canadian and US auto markets are deeply linked, and the discriminatory tax would be harmful for Canada and its auto industry, though both sides show signs of general cooperation, and it won't come as a surprise to anyone if the issue is resolved very quickly. Well, the second story this week has been the conclusion of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, where he was cleared of charges brought against him for which he had pleaded not guilty. The verdict has been highly controversial and divisive, praised by some and lauded by others. Here, I'm not trying to be biased, but this is the effect that's created on American and American politics. For those that do not know the whole story, it can quickly be summed up like this. It's not perfect, but the best we can do here in 10 minutes. There were race riots and high unrest in Kenosha, Wisconsin, after the shooting of a black man by police. Some individuals wanting to protect local businesses from looting and damage went from other states and of course from Kenosha to stand guard, and Kyle Rittenhouse was one of them. There, an unfortunate scene of events eventually ensued, and he fatally had to shoot two men, both white, and had to wound another, also white. At the time just a teenager, 17, he claimed that he only shot the individuals out of self-defense when he was attacked by one, and another had pulled a gun on him first. The jury has found him innocent of the charges, and the fears of violence in the city has prompted National Guard units to be sent to the city. There were thankfully only low-profile protests this time. Many Democrat leaders unexpectedly have condemned the ruling, such as the mayor of New York, while a Republican Wisconsin senator has welcomed the decision. President Biden was very unhappy and angry also after the ruling, but at least he said that the jury had spoken and that they had to respect the decision. Well, Kyle was acting in self-defense, and he definitely was not the first person to attack. His case would not have been that important if it had taken place outside of racial tensions and protests. Speaking from a legal standpoint, he was acting in self-defense, and that does not change if he's acting in a different environment. This is not bias, it's just how law works in America. The third story of the week is Austria's full lockdown that will last between 10 to 20 days. At first, the nation had declared a partial lockdown aimed at the unvaccinated, but now the president has declared a lockdown involving all regardless of vaccination. The nation has also been the first in the Western world to make vaccines mandatory by February 2022. The moves come after incredible peaks reached 1,000 per 100,000 people. Cases, of course. Look, I'm not here to defend lockdowns or to oppose them, trying to be unbiased and impartial as possible. I'm just reporting what's going on right now. I'm not a scientist, of course, but the catastrophic and economic effect is undeniable on both the countries and the people. The Austrians will once again be forced to work from home and schools will be shut. Non-essential shops are closing and other shops are closing early, like at 6 or 8. Other European nations have introduced partial restrictions, such as the Netherlands, Slovakia, and Czechia. Now, next on agenda is humanitarian and cultural developments. There has been a horrendous terrorist attack in Liverpool, and the French have decided to change their flag for some reason. There has been a terrorist attack in the United Kingdom, unfortunately, though at at least a catastrophe has been averted by the heroic actions of a cab driver. A recent Christian convert tried to blow himself up during Remembrance Day when the United Kingdom fell silent at 11, but he was unable to get there. He instead blew himself up in front of Liverpool Women's Hospital. He was the only one killed at the incident, and it follows the gruesome murder of Southend-on-Sea's Member of Parliament. The United Kingdom has raised their terrorist alert to severe, the highest possible. Hopefully more attacks do not follow, and the terrorist threat one day will of course be ended, though highly unlikely. Though on a lighter note, the French have changed their flag, and people actually did not even notice it for months. Emmanuel Macron, the president, can actually change the flag. Yeah, he has a right to do that, but not of course fully. The blue, white and red in the French flag are enshrined in their constitution, though the president was allowed to change the color of the tone and reverted the color back to its original color, the naval blue, from the European blue, in 1976, but it was changed by a previous president to align itself a bit closer to the EU and have the same color tone as its flag. Now, on to economic developments. The inflation cycle as always continues, and some more central banks have raised interest rates. An interesting development comes from India, where a much hated agricultural reform has been withdrawn. After almost a year of protests have finally resulted in the Indian government backing down. Protests have been camping around the capital, fighting for their livelihoods, which would have been devastated by mass privatizations and big farmers driving out small farmers. Well, if I wanted to shortly explain this, there's been a major agricultural reform brought about by the ruling party of Prime Minister Modi, and many rural farmers have opposed the move, of course threatening their livelihoods. Half of the country is still dependent on farming and to get by, and in many cases they're already struggling to make ends meet and basically only able to feed themselves. Of course, the Prime Minister had to back down after demands by the populace, though the real reason is not just by the demand and protests, but the upcoming elections in largely agrarian two states in India. Well, that's all for this week, and it wasn't too long and it wasn't too short. I tried to keep it sweet. And again, once again, thank you very much for listening to the first edition of 10 Minute News. Sorry, this is the second edition of 10 Minute News. Please cut that bit out.
Yeah, boy.
Thank you very much for listening to the second edition of 10 Minute News, and I hope that you have enjoyed it. Join us next time, and please stay well. Please also remember to like and subscribe and share with your friends so more may get informed. Thank you.